Donc, à l'étude de la motion de Mme Collins. Mme Collins, à vous la parole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, I'm moving a motion that would call the CEOs of the biggest oil companies in Canada to come to committee to talk about the fact that they are raking in record profits. Their emissions are going up. Canadians are being gouged at the pumps. And, you know, we need to hold these wealthy CEOs accountable. It is not fair that everyday Canadians are paying the price of the climate crisis. We've seen devastating wildfires, extreme flooding, the heat domes that killed hundreds of people in British Columbia, mainly low-income seniors, people living in low-income housing, people with disabilities. You know, people are paying the cost of the climate crisis, but these companies are profiting off of it. We need to hold these companies accountable, and asking nicely is not working. You know, companies, including the ones who are part of the Pathways Alliance, have made commitments, but then failed or pulled back on those commitments publicly. You know, Rich Kruger, who's named in this motion, recently said that he isn't going to prioritize reducing emissions. He's prioritizing making more profit. And this is at a time when Suncor is already making record-breaking profits. While Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, these companies are just acting in ways that are completely unfair. And the government has a responsibility to hold them accountable and to have the backs of Canadians rather than wealthy CEOs. So I'm going to put it to the committee. I know that there are a number of friendly amendments, which I welcome, and I hope that everyone can support bringing these CEOs to committee to answer questions.
Thank you. I have Mr. Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I just, if we have time at the end of debate on this motion, I just wanted to indicate that I have another motion to move after.
Okay, sure. Okay. Madame Posé.
Oui, alors c'est un amendement amical. C'est comme ça s'appelle, je pense. Oups. J'entends la traduction en anglais.
The interpretation in English. Sorry about that. Point B. I suggest that the draft be changed to Canadians across the country are facing a cost of living crisis, comma, and we change the rest of the wording. Canadians make their own choices. So I think that that includes the idea that they are having difficulty making ends meet. So after the comma, you want to remove forcing many families to choose between putting food on the table and so on. But you want to add and have trouble paying for their basic needs. I believe the clerk got my changes in writing. Oh, you've sent it in writing? Correct.
Change captures the same meaning to me and is just a different wording, and so I'm hoping that we could pass this by unanimous consent.
Okay. On a le consentement unanime pour...
Do we have unanimous consent for this friendly amendment, from Ms. Posé to Ms. Collins' notice of motion? Yes, perfect. Mr. Van Koeverden.
Just a simple addition as an amendment just to add Shell Canada President. That's Susanna Pierce. So it would be Susanna Pierce, comma, Shell Canada President and Country Chair and Vice President of Emerging Energy Solutions to the list of people who will...
Okay, so we add them after Enbridge?
Is that in the list? Is it okay? I mean, typically they're done alphabetically, so there's
Yeah,
no
okay,
other
so
preference.
we're adding... Could you just read that again?
Sure. Susanna Pierce. It's Susanah. Pierce, are CE, Shell Canada President, and Country Chair and Vice President of Emerging Energy
Okay, so
Solutions.
we're adding Shell, okay. Yes,
Again, I think this is in the spirit of the motion, and I
think
welcome
so,
this
yeah.
amendment. I'm hoping that we can pass it by unanimous
perfect.
consent.
We're good? Everyone's good with this amendment? Okay. So I assume we agree with the motion unanimously? Okay. I was just asking.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, I was listening for that one. Didn't agree.
On division?
Can we
No, you want to
We're gonna have a
debate it?
vote.
You want to debate it?
go to a vote?
Okay, we can go to a vote, okay.
So on the, so.
As, on the
you just
motion
added a
as
couple-
amended, yeah,
Got a couple of witnesses and on the motion.
yeah.
Mr. Ali?
You're on mute, Mr. Ali.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
I support.
Pardon?
He supports.
In favor.
In favor, yeah, okay, in
Madame
support.
Chatel? Mr. Longfield?
In favor.
Ms. Taylor-Roy? In favor. Mr. Vancouverton?
En faveur, merci.
Mr. Dantel?
Contre.
Mr. Cram? Mr. Leslie? Mr. Mazier?
Against.
Madame Posey?
Pour.
Ms. Collins?
In favor.
Okay, so the motion passes. Mr. Leslie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just given we're in committee business, it seems there's appropriate time to.
We're out of camera, I just wanted everyone, remind
We
everyone.
are in committee business. I'm able to move.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
motion
you're
here.
good, but you're not in camera, that's all I.
Well, that's okay. I'm
I'm
happy to
sure it
say
is,
this publicly,
okay.
privately, that's okay. I would like to move, Mr. Chair, given that, A, on November 9th, 2023, Derek Hermanitz, Director General, Economic Analysis Directorate for Environment and Climate Change Canada, stated at committee, quote, "I think we're probably in a world where we could say, with some rough analysis, that up to 1/3, potentially, of the emission reductions that we're projecting to 2030 would come from carbon pricing," end quote. Section B, on April 8th, 2024, Environment and Climate Change Canada provided the committee with an 18-page document titled Environment Canada's Provincial CGE, in bracket ECPRO, close bracket, model, in response to a document production order. And C, on April 9th, 2024, the committee ordered the production of the model and data from Environment Climate Change Canada that demonstrates that, quote, carbon pollution pricing will contribute as much as 1/3 of Canada's emissions reductions, including all Section 1 parameters, 2 assumptions, and 3 variables, 4 economic modeling, 5 and emissions reduction modeling, end quote. So pursuant to Standing Order 1081A, the committee requests Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault and officials from Environment and Climate Change Canada to testify on the Liberal government's carbon pricing emissions models, analysis, and economic modeling for no less than 2 hours by May 24th, 2024. Now, I think it is, I assume the minister would actually be quite happy to come before this committee to further explain. By that period in time, before May 24th, we will have received, hopefully,
Mr. Leslie, your motion says May 2nd, do you mean? Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's my understanding, Mr. Chair. I feel it would be, the minister would have plenty of time. The committee will have been fully briefed on the full modeling and analysis that has been requested and approved by this committee on Tuesday's meeting. I don't know if whether or not by that period there has been agreement by the Prime Minister to hold a meeting with all of the premiers regarding their views on the carbon taxes as agreed upon by the House of Commons just last night. Perhaps we could even have it be the same day, and we could have a fulsome understanding from the Minister and departmental officials of exactly what the modeling indicates. We have seen contrary numbers come recently from independent organizations saying it could be likely under 10% in terms of emissions reductions that could be stemming from the carbon tax. We have a lot of potentials and maybes coming from the department in terms of maybe being 1/3. But again, going back to the original information that was provided by ECCC, a document not written by ECCC that is not supposed to speak on behalf of Environment and Climate Change Canada or the minister in terms of the modeling and economic assumptions, emissions assumptions that have been used. I think, I assume that members of all parties would be willing to have the minister here. I know he's supposed to be coming on mains. Obviously, that is on a much more broad topic, but I think it'd be important to have the minister and his supporting officials be here directly to speak to the data that we will have received by then and show us the numbers of what the economic considerations that have been taken by the department in terms of what this tax could and is doing to Canadian businesses, families, farmers, and put it against what emissions reductions we have seen over recent years and what is anticipated to be seen, and ultimately let Canadians decide transparently of whether or not they think paying the carbon tax on everything that they buy in their day-to-day life is ultimately worth it, whether or not the emissions that are supposed to be coming down are coming down. So I encourage all my colleagues to quickly pass this motion and have the minister rightfully join this committee to express and help us understand where 30% came from.
Okay, Mr. Van Koeverden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks to my colleague for bringing up this important issue. I'd actually welcome an opportunity to hear from more experts. You know, our minister has been working in environmental activism, but I don't believe he's ever claimed to be a paleoclimatologist or an economist. But there has been a letter signed by over 200 Canadian economists indicating that our carbon pricing system is effective. It's effective for two reasons. One, because it drives down emissions, and two, because it supports affordability with the Canada Carbon Rebate. So I'd actually support a much broader look at this. To date, I haven't heard one Canadian economist suggest that carbon pricing doesn't work. It's a very well-proven market-based instrument. Stephen Harper supported a $65 price on pollution back when he was the Prime Minister. Preston Manning has suggested that pricing pollution is the best way to drive down emissions. Only in Canada do Conservatives oppose pricing pollution, and it's because, quite frankly, as we just was demonstrated with your... I'm sorry, I can't hear. If you'd like to get on the list. Thanks. It would be... You know, it would be great if the Conservatives could provide a witness, perhaps, that would like to come to the committee and testify that carbon pricing is not an effective way to drive down emissions. It'd be great to hear if there's any sort of economic rationale to their slogans and their policy recommendations, which are pretty much just three-word slogans. But it also, you know, it bears consideration that just 5 minutes ago the Conservatives voted down a motion to have oil executives come here and talk about their profit margins. And it also bears recognizing that on the day where, you know, they held rallies across this country about axe the tax on April 1st, the Premier of Alberta increased the price of gas by more than the price on pollution did without a rebate. It also bears recognizing that in Saskatchewan, Premier Moe has been asked repeatedly to reconsider his exorbitant, non-rebatable provincial excise tax on gasoline. He's one of the only premiers to have not reduced it. When Premier Smith did reduce it, she brought it back up by 4 cents in April. So the premiers are talking out of both sides of their mouths, saying the rebatable price on pollution should be axed, but the non-rebatable tax they collect should not be. So it's clear to me who the Conservatives are working for. It's big oil and gas. It's Conservative premiers. It's not Canadians. So I would welcome a broader look into this with some economists who study this, some experts who the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, calls so-called experts. They're not so-called experts, and they're not liberal experts. They're university professors, they're economists, they're paleoclimatologists. They are experts who study this, who know that carbon pricing works. They know how to do math and basic math at that, and they know the difference between an economic impact and a fiscal impact, which is a challenging one for my colleagues opposite. So certainly, you know, we've been talking about freshwater a lot, which is a topic very, very close to my heart, an important one, but I would entertain the opportunity to have a broader look at carbon pricing in Canada, since it's something that my Conservative colleagues are completely obsessed with.
Proposing an amendment, or?
It's debate.
Well, we're debating the motion.
I want to hear from my other colleagues.
Okay, so we go now to Mr. Longfield.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad to see that we're discussing this. I was really glad, first of all, that we did receive the modeling information that was requested by the Conservatives. When I read it, I saw the formulas being used in the modeling, and made me. I had some flashbacks of studying economics and going, "I'm glad I don't have to do that when I'm 67 years old." But then, when Ms. Collins asked us to consider getting not only modeling but more information about this, I thought that was a really good motion that she passed, and so we are expecting information, or that we passed on her behalf. So we are getting information that we can study. I'd love to hear from more experts. I think, even Boris Johnson today was in Canada and said, I wish the Conservatives in Canada would take climate change seriously. And so I think we could get some real study on this. And I would say that we could study this for a minimum of 3 meetings as an amendment to the motion.
Okay, so
So
are you
we could
proposing an amendment?
including the invitation to the minister, but I think I'd like to propose an amendment that we do a study on the information we received for 3 minutes and
Three
3
meetings.
meetings and report the results to the House.
So where would this go? This would be an added paragraph at the end?
Yeah,
Can you just give us some wording, Mr.?
that we would study the information we receive for a minimum of 3 meetings,
So,
inviting witnesses.
okay, so,
et cetera, et cetera.
sorry, where are we? The committee requests Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault and officials to testify on the Liberal government, blah, blah, blah. What about if I put a semicolon after May 24th, 2024, and yes.
Chair, on the amendment?
No, I understand what you're asking
So
for.
now you're
Mr. Chair?
changing the whole.
I'm not, but Mr.
Okay, but I mean,
Longfield,
Longfield,
Mr. Longfield, I have you on the list, Ms. Collins. You're next.
For the amendment or for the main motion?
Sorry, for the main.
I'd like to be on the list for the amendment.
Madame Posé, est-ce que vous aviez votre main levée aussi?
Ms. Posey, did you raise your hand as well? Was it for the motion or the amendment? For the amendment.
Et puis, je vois la...
I see Mr. Leslie has raised his hand for the amendment.
Let's go.
Okay. Okay, basically, I'm trying to formulate Mr. Longfield's idea here. Like, do we just put after May, my question is to you, Mr. Longfield. So after May 24th, 2024, do we put semicolon and
I'd say before that, if we said that we conduct a study for 3 meetings, including an invitation to the minister.
Okay, so so we just need some language here. So so do we need the 1081 or so that the committee? Okay, so given that that the committee conduct a 3-meeting study of what?
The information we receive.
Of information
We receive.
we've received.
Chair,
We
with all my respect, is that your job to take what they?
No,
they
but
propose?
maybe
If they
okay.
want
We're
to
going to
have-
take a pause. Thank you.
With all my
I'm just trying to expedite, but why don't we do this? Can you write it down, and Mr. Longfield?
I think, may I? I think this is something worth considering. This is
No,
definitely.
we're not debating that. We just I need the language. I just need. Do
Talk
you,
to the lawyer about it, then get it down on
Okay.
paper. Let's go.
Mr. Longfield, if you can just.
Right beside you.
If you can. Okay, well, listen, we're going to pause for a couple of minutes so that Mr. Longfield can put his amendment.
Mr. Chair.
Colleagues, we're going to pause for a couple of minutes so Mr. Longfield can put his amendment on paper, and we can proceed from there. So we're just going to.
I sent it, but I can
Okay, so we've sent it out, Mr. Longfield, but we'll make sure you get it. Qui avait la parole?
Who had the mic? Was it Ms. Collins? I think it was Mr. Longfield. So you are suggesting that we amend Ms. Collins' motion. Is that correct?
No.
Excusez-moi. La motion de M. Leslie, vous avez un amendement à proposer?
Mr. Leslie's amendment, I believe. You wanted to amend Mr. Leslie's amendment? Is that correct?
To get more information. We haven't seen the information yet.
Right.
I'd like to have witnesses come at some point to
Okay.
talk about the information. I also know we have a study coming from Madame Posey that some of that could be included in. So I think if we start off with having the minister come
Okay.
in and talk about the information, we may want to have a further study, or
Got
we
it.
might want to include this in Madame Posey's
Okay.
study.
Okay. So
So just go ahead with what we've got.
OK. So, alors, monsieur, en fin de compte, monsieur.
Mr. Longfield is not suggesting an amendment in the end. I will therefore get rid of the list of people who wanted to speak to it. Now, on to Ms. Collins.
I mean, we have to make an invitation and find out when that's
Yeah.
available.
Alors, so if I understand correctly, basically we're going back to the original motion by Mr. Leslie. There were no amendments to the motion.
Yeah.
He withdrew his amendment. So, is there a need to debate? I have Ms. Collins, Mr. Leslie, Mr. Van Koeverden. Pardon? Yeah. Do you want to just proceed to a vote? Do you want to withdraw your names from?
I'll withdraw my name.
Yeah. Mr. Leslie?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment, and I appreciate my colleagues across the way recognizing that it will be difficult for any experts coming to committee without having that information. It's probably not an appropriate time to add to this motion. I would fully agree. We could have a study of 10 meetings with experts. We could bring in industry associations that have been impacted. We could bring in farmers and families that are being crippled by this. There's a lot of experts that we could bring in to talk about this, and I think that's a great idea. But my colleague, Ms. Posey's motion or study is on the books, and I think it would be unfair to jump ahead of that by altering this motion. So hopefully we can get unanimous support and get the minister here with in short
I
order.
can take you off the list. I've got you next, Mr. Van Koeverden, then Madame Posey.
Yeah, my concern is that we're launching this, the meeting after it was requested for more information on the modeling. I think we ought to get the information on the modeling, have an opportunity to look at it. It was only just delivered on Monday, and they want further data and a little bit more comprehensive information. And I think that's the next step. I don't think inviting the officials to committee prior to even seeing it is the next step. I think it's preemptive.
So you're
and I
against the
think-
motion as it's written.
I'm not against the motion. I'm against doing it right now.
Okay.
I'm against the date.
Sorry, Madame Posey?
Ms. Posey? I believe the date was changed to May 24. That is why we talked about the date change. That allows a full month and a half to receive the required information, and I believe that's reasonable.
Mr. Mazur?
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, we need the factual information of what the Liberals have been talking about, what the minister's been talking about for years now, 8 years. And the truth, if it's to be known, is it measured or is it not? Is there a wanted outcome, or is it just projections? This is really what we're getting at here.
Yeah.
So if we can get on with this motion, we'll see, and hopefully we'll have some more information. But I encourage the members to pass this motion.
I have a sense there's unanimous consent to pass this motion as is. You want to vote? Okay, let's have a vote.
Mr. Ali?
Yes.
You're in favor? Okay.
Madame Chatel? Mr. Longfield?
In favor.
Ms. Taylor-Roy?
In favor.
Mr. Van Koeverden?
In favor.
Monsieur Dadtel? Mr. Cram?
In favor.
Mr. Leslie? In favor. Mr. Mazer?
In favor?
Madame Posey?
Oui.
Ms. Blaney?
In favor.
All in favor.
Donc, ça a été adopté.
Motion passes unanimously. Anything else? Can we end the session? Perfect. So see you next week on Thursday. Adjourned.